My husband told me he wanted an open marriage after 15 years together. I said fine. 90 days later, he was crying because I had a boyfriend and he couldn't get a single date. It started on a Tuesday. Gerald came home from his law firm and sat me down at our dining table. The same table where we'd eaten breakfast that morning, where I'd made him eggs just the way he liked them for 5,178 mornings in a row. I need to tell you something, he said. I've been thinking about our relationship. My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. That's the voice men use when they're about to blow up your entire world while pretending they're doing you a favor. I think we should open up our marriage, he continued. We're still young. Well, youngish. Don't you think we deserve to explore what else is out there? I stared at him, at his receding hairline and the small gut pushing against his button-down, at the man I'd supported through law school while working retail, the man whose mother I'd cared for during her final 6 months of cancer treatment. Is there someone else? I asked calmly. No, he insisted too quickly. This isn't about anyone specific. It's about personal growth. We can still love each other and experience other connections. I looked at my wedding ring, the small diamond he'd promised to upgrade someday but never did because there was always something else to spend money on. His golf membership? His car lease? Okay, I said. His eyes widened. Really? Sure, open marriage. Let's do it. He looked almost disappointed that I hadn't fought harder. Like maybe he'd wanted the drama to justify whatever he was already planning to do. That weekend, I joined a dating app. Within 2 hours, I had 89 matches. Within 2 days, I had coffee dates scheduled with 5 different men. Gerald was still optimizing his profile, asking me which photos made him look distinguished. I met Dominic on day 8. He was a firefighter with kind eyes and a genuine smile. He asked questions about my life and actually listened to the answers. When he laughed at my jokes, it felt like remembering something I'd forgotten existed. Meanwhile, Gerald's matches were responding with one-word answers or ghosting him entirely. The algorithm must be broken, he muttered, refreshing his phone constantly. By week 4, Dominic and I were seeing each other twice a week. He'd bring flowers to my office. We'd try new restaurants. He made me feel seen in ways I hadn't experienced in years. Gerald's date count remained at 0. Women these days have impossible standards, he complained. At week 8, Dominic asked if I wanted to make things exclusive. I said I'd think about it. The truth was, I was already thinking about divorce lawyers. By week 11, Gerald stopped pretending to be okay with this. He'd sit on the couch watching me get ready for dates, his face twisted with rage and humiliation. This isn't what I meant, he said. I meant we'd both have options. We do both have options, I replied. You're just not picking good ones. Last week, I found him crying in our bedroom, real tears. His phone was open to my Instagram where Dominic had tagged me at a vineyard upstate. I made a mistake, he sobbed. I thought you'd never actually do it. I thought you'd be the one waiting at home while He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. While you what? I asked. There's someone at the firm, he admitted. An associate. I thought if we opened things up, I could see where it went without technically cheating. The associate had zero interest in Gerald. She'd been polite during their conversations. He'd mistaken professionalism for flirtation. Now he wanted to close the marriage again. Wanted to pretend the last 90 days hadn't happened. Wanted me to end things with Dominic and go back to making his eggs and living where I was slowly disappearing. Yesterday, Dominic asked me to move in with him. He has a loft downtown with exposed brick and windows that overlook the city. I told him I needed to settle things first. This morning, I found divorce papers in Gerald's briefcase. Not ones he'd filed. Ones he'd been served. The papers were from his firm, not from me. From the managing partners. They were terminating him for cause. Sexual harassment. The associate he'd been pursuing had filed a formal complaint with HR after he'd cornered her in the copy room. She had witnesses, email evidence, text messages he'd sent at 2 a.m., asking her to meet him at hotels. There were 5 other complaints attached. Women who'd stayed silent until the associate came forward. Paralegals, junior associates, even a client's assistant. I sat on our bed reading through the documentation, page after page of my husband's behavior, how he'd block doorways, make comments about their bodies, send inappropriate messages through the firm's internal chat system. Gerald found me there an hour later. You weren't supposed to see those, he said quietly. When were you going to tell me? I asked. Never, probably. He sat down heavily on the edge of the bed. I thought I could fight it, claim it was all misunderstood. I kept reading. There was a settlement offer. The firm would give him 60 days to resign quietly, or they'd file everything with the state bar. His law license would be suspended, maybe permanently revoked. How long? I asked. How long has this been going on? He didn't answer immediately. Then, so quietly I almost missed it. Years. My hands started shaking. Years. While I'd been making his breakfast and attending firm events and playing the supportive wife. While I'd smiled at these women at holiday parties and asked about their careers. The open marriage thing, I said slowly. That wasn't about exploration or personal growth. No, you were trying to get ahead of this. You knew the complaints were coming. You thought if we had an open marriage, when this all came out, you could claim consensual relationships. He nodded miserably. I stood up, started gathering my things, my clothes from the closet, my toiletries from the bathroom, my laptop from the office. Where are you going? Gerald asked. Dominic's. Just like that? You're not even going to try to work through this? I turned to look at him, really look at him, at the man I'd wasted 15 years on. Work through what exactly? The sexual harassment? The lying? The fact that you tried to manipulate me into an open marriage to cover your tracks? I never cheated on you, he said desperately. None of it was physical. It was just flirting, compliments. It was harassment, Gerald. It's literally written down in legal documents. You're being dramatic. I laughed. actually laughed. I'm being dramatic? Your entire career is imploding. You're about to lose your law license. Our house is mortgaged to pay for your golf membership and your car and your lifestyle, and you think I'm the problem? We took vows, he said. So did you. I loaded my car in 4 trips. He watched from the doorway but didn't help, didn't apologize, just stood there looking sorry for himself. When I drove away, I saw him in the rearview mirror, still standing there, like he couldn't quite believe I was actually leaving. Dominic met me at his building, helped carry my boxes upstairs, didn't ask questions when I couldn't stop crying, just held me on his couch while I told him everything. I'm sorry, I kept saying. This is so much mess. It's not your mess, he said. It's his. That was 2 days ago. Yesterday, Gerald called 41 times. I answered once. I need you to come back, he said. I can't afford the mortgage without your salary. Then sell the house. Our house? Your house, I corrected. My name's not on anything, remember? You said it was better for taxes. Silence. I talked to a lawyer, I continued. Turns out since you kept everything in your name, I'm not liable for any of your debts. The mortgage, the car payments, the credit cards you maxed out, that's all you. You can't do this. Watch me. I hung up, blocked his number, changed my email password, removed him from my health insurance beneficiary forms. This morning, the associate from his firm called me. Her name is Patricia. She asked if we could meet for coffee. We sat in a small cafe near her apartment. She was younger than I expected, maybe 26, with nervous hands and dark circles under her eyes. I wanted to apologize, she said. For what? For not coming forward sooner. I knew he was married. I kept telling myself it wasn't my problem, that you probably knew what kind of man he was. I shook my head. I didn't. I really didn't. He told me you had an open marriage, that you were seeing other people and didn't care what he did. My stomach turned. When did he tell you that? 6 months ago. Right before he started getting more aggressive. 6 months before he'd asked me for an open marriage. He'd been laying groundwork, setting up his story. Did he? I couldn't finish the question. No, Patricia said quickly. He tried once. After a firm happy hour. I told him I wasn't interested. That's when things got worse. He started finding reasons to criticize my work, excluded me from meetings, made comments about my appearance in front of partners. Why didn't they fire him immediately? He's a rainmaker, brings in millions in billings. The firm wanted to handle it quietly, offer me a settlement to leave, but I refused. Then the other women came forward. She showed me her phone, a group chat with 6 women from the firm. They were comparing notes, building a case, supporting each other. We're going to the state bar regardless of what the firm does, Patricia said. He shouldn't be practicing law. Good, I said. We talked for 2 more hours. She told me about the times Gerald had followed her to her car, how he'd sent flowers to her apartment even though she'd never given him her address, how he'd cornered her in the stairwell and told her she was ruining her career by rejecting him. When we finally left, she hugged me. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for being brave enough to speak up. I went back to Dominic's loft. He was making dinner, something simple with pasta and fresh vegetables. He looked up when I walked in. How'd it go? Worse than I thought. I told him everything, about the flowers and the stalking and the threats, about how Gerald had been building a pattern of behavior for years, how I'd been completely blind to it. You weren't blind, Dominic said. You trusted him. That's different. I should have known. How? He hid it from everyone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times Gerald had come home late from the office, all the work dinners and client meetings. Had any of it been real? Or had he been pursuing these women the whole time? At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Victoria from Gerald's firm. Patricia gave me your number. I hope that's okay. I sat up, typed back, Who are you? I was one of the other complainants. I left the firm 2 years ago. Gerald told everyone I quit for personal reasons. The truth is, I took a settlement to avoid a public fight. My hands tightened on my phone. What happened? He spent 6 months pursuing me. I was a paralegal, fresh out of college. He was a senior associate. I thought he was mentoring me. Then he started asking me to work late. Just the 2 of us. He'd order dinner, bring wine, make comments about how I looked. Did you report it? I tried. HR said it was a misunderstanding, that Gerald was just friendly. They offered me a transfer to a different department, but he followed me there. Started showing up at my desk, sending internal messages. I couldn't escape him. So you took the settlement. $15,000 and an NDA. I signed away my right to ever talk about what happened, but NDAs don't apply in state bar proceedings. I'm willing to testify. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know who you were married to, and because I want to make sure he never does this to anyone else. We messaged for another hour. She told me about 2 other women who'd taken settlements. One who'd had a complete breakdown and left the legal profession entirely. Another who'd transferred to the firm's West Coast office just to get away from Gerald. By morning, I had a list of 9 women. 9 women whose careers and lives had been affected by my husband's behavior. I called my lawyer, a woman named Francesca who specialized in divorce and employment law. She'd been recommended by Dominic's sister. I need to file for divorce, I said, and I need to make sure I'm protected from any of his financial liabilities. Tell me everything. I spent 2 hours walking through the timeline, the open marriage request, the harassment complaints, the firm's investigation, the settlement offers. This is bad, Francesca said when I finished. For him, I mean. For you, this is actually good. How? You have grounds for fault-based divorce, emotional cruelty, fraud, the fact that he misrepresented the reason for opening your marriage. A judge will take that into account when dividing assets. What assets? Everything's in his name. Doesn't matter. You were married 15 years. You supported him through law school. Anything acquired during the marriage is marital property. The house, his retirement account, his partnership stake in the firm, half of it is yours. He's about to lose his partnership. Even better. We can argue for compensatory support. You sacrificed your career advancement to support his. He owes you. The divorce papers were filed that afternoon. Francesca had them served at Gerald's office, in front of his remaining colleagues. A small, vindictive part of me enjoyed imagining his face. He called from his mother's house that night. She lived 2 hours upstate in a retirement community. You're really doing this? He asked. Yes. After everything I've given you? I almost laughed. What exactly have you given me, Gerald? A house in your name? A lifestyle funded by credit cards I didn't know existed? 15 years of my life wasted on a man who was harassing women half his age? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I've talked to them. I know what you did. They're lying. They wanted promotions. When I didn't give them what they wanted, they made up stories. 9 women, Gerald. 9. And those are just the ones brave enough to come forward. You're supposed to be on my side. I'm on the side of truth. And the truth is, you're not who I thought you were. I hung up. Blocked that number too. The next week was a blur. I moved the rest of my things out of the house. Changed my mailing address. Opened new bank accounts in my name only. Started looking for a new job because I couldn't stay at my current position, knowing Gerald's firm was our biggest client. Dominic was patient through all of it. He gave me space when I needed it, held me when I broke down, never once made me feel like I was a burden. Why are you being so good to me? I asked one night. Because you deserve it, he said simply. 2 weeks after filing for divorce, I got a call from the State Bar Association. They wanted to interview me as part of their investigation into Gerald's conduct. I met with them on a Wednesday. 2 investigators, both women, in a small conference room downtown. They asked about our marriage, about Gerald's work habits, about whether I'd ever noticed anything unusual. Did he work late often? One investigator asked. Almost every night. Did you ever meet the women he worked with? At firm events? Holiday parties? Sometimes I'd bring him lunch. Did he ever discourage you from coming to the office? I paused, thought about it. Actually, yes, now that you mention it. He always said the office was boring, that I'd be uncomfortable, that he'd rather keep work and home separate. The investigators exchanged glances, made notes. Did he have a home office? Yes, he kept it locked. Said client files were confidential. Do you still have access to the house? I have keys. Would you be willing to let us search his office? Gerald's mother called me that night, screaming. Apparently the state bar had shown up with a warrant. They'd seized his computer, his files, his phone records. How could you do this to him? She yelled. He's your husband. He harassed 9 women, I said calmly. That I know of. There are probably more. Boys will be boys. It's just harmless flirting. It's illegal. And it's over. She called me names I won't repeat. Said I'd ruined her son's life, that I was vindictive and cruel and heartless. I let her talk. When she finally ran out of steam, I said, he did this to himself. I just refused to cover for him anymore. The state bar investigation took 5 weeks. During that time, Gerald's firm forced him out. No settlement, no severance. Just a letter terminating his partnership effective immediately. He tried to fight it, hired a lawyer to argue wrongful termination. The firm released a statement. We take allegations of workplace harassment seriously and have zero tolerance for inappropriate conduct. His case was dismissed. The evidence was overwhelming. On a Monday in late November, the state bar announced their decision. Gerald's law license was suspended indefinitely pending a full ethics hearing. He would need to prove rehabilitation before being considered for reinstatement. His lawyer called me, said Gerald wanted to negotiate the divorce settlement, that he couldn't afford a prolonged legal battle. Francesca and I met with them at her office. Gerald looked terrible. He'd lost weight. His suit didn't fit right anymore. He couldn't meet my eyes. My client is prepared to offer a fair division of assets, his lawyer said. Define fair, Francesca replied. They offered me 30% of the marital assets. I countered with 60%. We settled at 55%. The house would be sold. I'd get half the proceeds plus compensatory support of $3,000 per month for 5 years. His retirement account would be split. I'd keep my car and personal belongings. He needs money to live on, his lawyer argued. So does my client, Francesca said, who sacrificed her career advancement to support him through law school, who has to rebuild her professional life at 42 because she spent 15 years as a trailing spouse. Gerald finally spoke. I don't have $3,000 a month. Then get a job, I said. I hear Target is hiring. His lawyer looked shocked. Gerald's face went red. You're being cruel, he said. I'm being honest. Something you never were with me. We signed the papers that day. Francesca filed them with the court. The divorce would be final in 6 months. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in years, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even know was there. Dominic was waiting in his truck outside. He took one look at my face and smiled. It's done? He asked. It's done. We drove to the lake, sat on the dock watching the sunset. He didn't ask questions, didn't need details, just held my hand while I processed everything. I wasted 15 years, I said eventually. You didn't waste anything. You learned what you don't want. That's valuable. I should have seen the signs. What signs? He was good at hiding. That's what manipulators do. I leaned against his shoulder, watched the water turn gold, then pink, then purple as the sun disappeared. Thank you, I said. For what? For being you, for being honest, for showing me what a real relationship looks like. He kissed the top of my head. I'm not going anywhere. The divorce finalized on a Tuesday in May, exactly 1 year after Gerald had asked for an open marriage. The irony wasn't lost on me. The house sold for $480,000. After paying off the mortgage and Gerald's credit card debt, I walked away with $127,000. Enough for a down payment on something of my own. Gerald moved into a studio apartment across town, got a job doing document review for $35 per hour. No benefits, no prestige, just tedious contract work that any first-year associate could do. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he was bitter, that he blamed me for ruining his career, that he told anyone who'd listen that I'd turned the women at his firm against him. I didn't care. I was too busy building my own life. I took a job at a nonprofit. The pay was less than my corporate position, but the work was meaningful. I helped women leaving domestic violence situations rebuild their credit and find employment. Women who reminded me of Patricia and Victoria and all the others Gerald had tried to destroy. Dominic and I moved in together officially. A small house in a quiet neighborhood with a yard for the dog we adopted. A rescue named Murphy, who'd been abandoned and needed a second chance. Just like me. On our 6-month anniversary, Dominic made dinner. Pasta carbonara and fresh bread. We ate on the back deck while Murphy chased fireflies in the grass. I have something to tell you, he said when we'd finished eating. My stomach tightened. Those words still triggered anxiety. Okay, I love you, he said. I know it's fast. I know you're still healing, but I wanted you to know. I looked at him, at this man who'd shown up when my life was falling apart, who'd held me through panic attacks and court dates, who'd never once made me feel like I was too much or not enough. I love you too, I said, and I meant it. 6 months later, Gerald's ethics hearing was held. I wasn't required to testify, but I attended anyway. Sat in the back of the room and watched as 9 women told their stories, described what he'd done, how he'd made them feel, the careers he'd damaged. The panel deliberated for 2 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Gerald's law license was permanently revoked. He could apply for reinstatement in 10 years, but the likelihood of approval was minimal. He looked at me as he left the hearing room, his face twisted with hatred, like somehow this was my fault, like I'd forced him to harass those women, to lie and manipulate and destroy. I didn't look away, just stared back until he dropped his gaze and walked out. Patricia found me in the hallway after, hugged me tight. Thank you, she said, for believing us, for leaving him. It gave the rest of us courage. You were already brave, I said. I just finally caught up. That night, Dominic and I sat on our back deck. Murphy was asleep at our feet. The neighborhood was quiet except for crickets and the occasional car passing by. Do you ever regret it? He asked, saying yes when Gerald asked for an open marriage. I thought about it, about everything that had happened, the pain and anger and betrayal, but also the freedom, the truth, the chance to start over. No, I said finally. If I'd said no, I might never have learned who he really was. I might have spent another 15 years making his eggs and pretending everything was fine. Would that have been so bad? Yes, I said, because it wouldn't have been real, and I'd rather have a painful truth than a comfortable lie. He squeezed my hand. I'm glad you said yes. Me too. Because the thing about Gerald's open marriage proposal was this. He thought he was manipulating me, thought he was setting up a situation where he could have his affairs without consequence, where I'd be the faithful wife waiting at home while he explored his options. Instead, I'd discovered my own worth, found someone who actually valued me, built a life that was mine instead of ours. Gerald had wanted an open marriage. What he got was a closed door, and I got everything else. The best revenge wasn't destroying him. It was building something better without him. Last week, I ran into his mother at the grocery store. She saw me, grabbed her cart, and tried to turn down another aisle. I called out to her. Wait. She stopped, turned slowly. Her face was hard. I don't want to talk to you, she said. I just wanted you to know I don't hate Gerald. She laughed bitterly. You destroyed his life. No, he did that himself. I just refuse to enable it anymore. He's my son, and those women are someone's daughters, someone's sisters. They matter too. She stared at me for a long moment, then her face crumpled. She grabbed the handle of her cart like she needed support. I knew, she whispered, about his father, about what he did to the women who worked for him. I told myself it was different back then, that men were just like that. It's not different now. I know. She wiped her eyes. I should have taught him better, should have held him accountable when he was young, before it became who he was. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just nodded. She walked away slowly, an old woman carrying the weight of her son's failures. I finished my shopping, drove home to the life I'd built. Murphy greeted me at the door, tail wagging. Dominic was in the kitchen making dinner. The house smelled like garlic and fresh herbs. Good day? He asked, kissing my cheek. Yeah, I said. Actually, it was. And it was true, because every day I woke up in this house, with this man, with this life I'd chosen, was a good day. Gerald had asked for an open marriage. What he'd really asked for was permission to keep being who he'd always been, a man who took what he wanted and damned the consequences. I'd said yes, but not to his plan. I'd said yes to freedom, to honesty, to demanding better. The marriage had opened, all right. Wide enough for me to walk through and never look back. A year passed, then another. My life settled into rhythms I'd never experienced with Gerald, real rhythms. Dominic and I developed our own traditions. Sunday morning farmers markets, evening walks with Murphy, cooking dinner together instead of eating in front of the TV. I got promoted at the nonprofit, started running workshops for women navigating divorce, teaching them about financial independence and legal rights, things I'd had to learn the hard way. One afternoon, a woman approached me after a session. She was maybe 35, with tired eyes and a wedding ring she kept twisting nervously. Can I ask you something? She said. Of course. My husband wants to open our marriage. He says it'll make us stronger, that we need to explore. She paused. But I think there's someone else. I sat down with her. We talked for an hour. I told her my story, not to scare her, but to show her what to look for, the manipulation tactics, The gaslighting. The way someone can make you doubt your own instincts. What should I do? She asked. That's your choice, I said. But whatever you decide, make sure it's actually what you want. Not what he's convinced you to want. She came back to every workshop after that, started asking harder questions, looking at her finances, building her own support system. 6 months later, she filed for divorce. Sent me a message that just said, "Thank you for showing me it was possible." Stories like that made everything worth it. Every painful moment of my own divorce. Every sleepless night wondering if I was making the right choice. I was. Dominic proposed on a random Thursday in October. No grand gesture, no fancy restaurant. Just us, sitting on our back deck after dinner, watching the leaves change colors. "I want to spend my life with you," he said. "Not because I need you, but because I choose you, every day." The ring was simple. A small sapphire instead of a diamond. Because he'd listened when I'd mentioned once, months ago, that I'd always preferred colored stones. "Yes," I said. We got married at the courthouse 6 months later. Just us, Murphy, and 2 witnesses we pulled from the waiting room. No big wedding, no family drama. Just 2 people who'd chosen each other, making it official. Afterward, we went to our favorite diner and ate pancakes. That's when I got the call. "Is this the former Mrs. Gerald Hutchins?" a woman's voice asked. My stomach tightened. "That's not my name anymore. Who is this?" "I'm calling from Memorial Hospital. Gerald was admitted 4 hours ago. He listed you as his emergency contact." "Why?" "He had a heart attack. A severe one. He's asking for you." I looked at Dominic, at my new husband, at the life we'd just pledged to build together. "Tell him I hope he pulls through," I said. "But I'm not coming." "Ma'am, he's asking specifically for you. He says there are things he needs to say. Then he should have said them 2 years ago, when it mattered." I hung up. Dominic reached across the table, took my hand. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, I really am." Gerald survived the heart attack. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd spent 2 weeks in ICU, that his mother had been his only visitor, that he'd asked for me repeatedly. I didn't go, didn't call, didn't send flowers. Some people thought I was cruel. His mother certainly did. She sent me a long email about forgiveness and Christian charity, about how I was condemning a sick man. I deleted it without responding. Because here's what I'd learned. Forgiveness doesn't mean showing up. It doesn't mean giving someone another chance to hurt you. Sometimes forgiveness means saying, "What you did was wrong, and I'm moving forward without you." That's what I'd done, moved forward. Gerald recovered, went back to his studio apartment and his document review job. I heard he'd started dating someone, a woman he'd met at a coffee shop. She was 26, worked in retail. I wondered if he'd learned anything, if he treated her better than he'd treated me, or if he was already setting up the same patterns, the same manipulation. I hoped for her sake he'd change, but I doubted it. 6 months after our wedding, I found out I was pregnant. It wasn't planned. Dominic and I had talked about kids vaguely, in that someday kind of way. But suddenly someday was in 7 months. "How do you feel about this?" he asked, his hand on my still flat stomach. "Terrified," I admitted, "but also happy." "Me too." We told Murphy first. He wagged his tail and licked my face. The best possible response. I was 4 months pregnant when Patricia called. She'd gotten a job at a different firm, made junior partner, was getting married in the spring. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for everything, for believing us, for showing us what strength looks like. You did that yourselves," I said. "No, you started it, when you left him, when you refused to protect him anymore. That gave the rest of us permission to do the same." We talked for an hour about her fiancé, about my pregnancy, about how our lives had changed since that day in the coffee shop when she'd apologized for something that wasn't her fault. "Do you ever think about him?" she asked. "Gerald? Sometimes, but not the way I used to. Now when I think about him, I mostly just feel nothing." That's good, right? That's perfect. Because indifference was the real opposite of love, not hate. Indifference. Gerald had tried to make me small, had spent 15 years convincing me that his career, his needs, his wants, mattered more than mine, that I should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention he threw my way. And I'd believed him, for far too long, but not anymore. Our daughter was born on a Tuesday in January, 7 pounds, 5 ounces. With Dominic's dark hair and my stubborn chin, we named her Charlotte, after no one, just because we liked the name. Dominic cried when he held her for the first time. Actually cried. Happy tears. "Thank you," he kept saying. "Thank you for choosing me, for choosing this." My mom flew in from Florida. She'd been skeptical of my divorce at first, had thought maybe I should try harder to work things out. But when I told her everything, when she'd understood what Gerald had really been, she'd changed her tune. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner," she said, holding Charlotte. "I'm sorry I told you to stay." "You didn't know," I said. "I should have. I'm your mother." He fooled everyone. That's what he was good at. She stayed for 2 weeks, helped with night feedings and laundry and all the things new parents don't realize they'll need help with. On her last day, she pulled me aside. "You're happy now," she said. "Really happy. I can see it." "I am. Good. You deserve this." Charlotte was 8 months old when I saw Gerald again. I was at the grocery store, Charlotte in the cart, grabbing things for dinner. I rounded the corner and there he was. He'd aged, more gray hair, deeper lines around his eyes. He was alone, holding a basket with 3 items, frozen dinners, the kind single men buy. He saw me, saw Charlotte. "Is that," he started. "Yes." He stared at her, at this beautiful baby girl who looked nothing like him, who wasn't his, who existed in a life he had no part of. "She's beautiful," he said quietly. "Thank you. You look good. Happy." "I am." An awkward silence stretched between us. Charlotte gurgled, reaching for a box of cereal. I adjusted her in the cart seat. "I'm sorry." Gerald said finally. For everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I wanted you to know. I looked at him, really looked. Tried to see the man I'd loved for 15 years, but he wasn't there anymore. Just a stranger who'd once convinced me he was someone worth building a life with. Okay, I said. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Gerald? That I forgive you? That we can be friends? That doesn't help anyone. I've changed. Good. I hope that's true. For your sake and for whoever you're with now. His face flickered with surprise. How did you? I don't care. I really don't. I hope you've learned. I hope you treat her better than you treated me. But it's not my problem anymore. I moved past him, continued my shopping. Charlotte babbled happily, oblivious to the man staring after us. When I got to the checkout line, I looked back. Gerald was still standing where I'd left him, frozen between the cereal and the pasta. A man stuck in place while life moved on around him. I paid for my groceries, loaded them in the car, drove home to Dominic and Murphy and the small, perfect life we'd built together. That night, after Charlotte was asleep and Murphy was snoring on his bed, Dominic and I sat on the couch, his arm around me, my head on his shoulder. I saw Gerald today, I said. Yeah? How was that? Fine, he apologized. Did you accept? I acknowledged it. That's all he's owed. Dominic kissed the top of my head. I'm proud of you. For what? For being strong enough to move on. For not needing his apology to be happy. That was it, exactly. I didn't need Gerald's apology. Didn't need his validation or his regret. I'd built something better without any of that. The open marriage he'd asked for had opened my eyes, had shown me that I deserved more than I'd been settling for. That happiness wasn't about making someone else happy at my own expense. It was about finding someone who wanted to build something together, who saw partnership as equal, who loved me not despite my strength but because of it. Gerald had asked for an open marriage. I'd said yes, and through that opening, I'd walked into the life I was always meant to have.